you ready to raise your game at Fork Union Military Academy? Sometimes described as the West Point of high schools, Fork Union is a leading college preparatory Christian boarding school for young men grounded in the structure of discipline of the traditional military academy model, and scholarships are available. Fork Union Military Academy's athletic program has produced hundreds of college and professional athletes, including 6 Olympians, 2 Heisman Trophy winners, and more than 120 NFL players. Fork Union Military Academy is a private school and is independent of any direct military affiliation or obligation. Schedule a tour and get started on your journey today by visiting forkunion.com. Fork Union Military Academy. Body, mind, spirit. It's the HoopWise podcast from New England Basketball Journal. Comprehensive look at the basketball landscape in New England, tracking prospects, recruiting, college, and more, with your hosts, Steve Hewitt and Ethan Fuller.
Welcome back to another episode of the HoopWise podcast, part of New England Basketball Journal. Ethan Fuller back here with Steve Hewitt. We are grinding through the middle of the season. It's been a lot of basketball. Both of us, I think we each had at least, you had many more, but I think 4 straight days of games for us last week. This is a catch-up on the MIAA season so far. Steve, how are you feeling?
I'm doing good, man. We're just grinding right now. There's snow on the ground. We're in the thick of it right now. It's hard to believe, but we're already past the halfway mark of the season. In like a month, we're going to be back on here previewing the state tournament. It goes by in a flash, as I'm sure you can attest. You've been covering MIAA longer than me, but it goes by so quickly.
It's so fast. I feel like I was just like catching my breath from opening weeks of MIAA games, and then on the prep side with the Nickerson Showcase, and then we had a couple days of like the holidays, and I was like, okay, we're settling in, and then bam, it's been like an entire month since then. So it goes really, really fast. On the MIAA side, it's been a really fun season. We are here to unpack some of the boys' results and championship pictures so far. We're going to talk about some top teams that have surprised us, top players that we've really enjoyed watching, and all that sort of stuff. So Steve has already written up his MIAA Boys Midseason report. This was last week, so check that out on the site. I think a lot of it, even if some of it's outdated, I think the themes are probably still the same, and I want to get into some of this. So I'm basically pulling from that midseason report, and we're going to unpack a little bit more of Steve's thoughts. So I actually want to start when I was reading this, when I got to the 3 surprises. Again, this is something we have talked about a lot, is Malden Catholic and St. Mary's, especially with coaching changes and a lot of roster turnover, being championship contenders once again. So talk about those 2 teams and how they've been able to do it, because you have seen them both, right?
I have not seen Malden Catholic yet, but okay. I did see St. Mary's in the game against Masco about a week or 2 ago. Yeah, it's interesting because like MC and St. Mary's have been such like fixtures of MIAA basketball the last like 4 or 5 years, right? And maybe in hindsight, I was maybe blind to the fact that they're probably just gonna still roll, even though they've had all these changes going into this year. So maybe part of it is my fault for maybe underestimating them a little bit, but I still think it's pretty notable. Like they both moved up divisions. MC from D2 to D1, St. Mary's D3 to D2. They both underwent head coaching changes. MC on the dawn of the new season, John
literally
Walsh
days
down.
before.
Yeah, and I don't know the details of that. Maybe that was kind of in the works for longer than that, and I don't know if the team was kind of caught off guard by that at all. But it's still like that's still a major shift from John Walsh to Mark Garrity, who was his assistant for the last like 15 years. So I don't know, maybe not much has changed with their culture and the way they do things. And but MC also lost, as we talked about, the Kamara brothers. Both went to Vermont Academy. Matt Gaffney, their superstar for the last 4 years, graduated. He's off to Navy. They did still bring in a few returners from last year when they made the D2 championship. But it's just like one of those things you don't know how it's all kind of going to shake out. Like obviously, again, going up to D1, that's a big task in and of itself. And going through all these changes and roster turnover. You just don't know how it's going to all shake out. But they started 11-0, kind of rolling through their schedule. They just finally lost their first game earlier this week against CM, who we'll get into a little bit later. So I think both those teams are at the top of the Catholic Conference right now. But no, credit to Mark Garrity stepping in after being an assistant for so long, kind of guiding that group. Jeremiah Fagaro, Duke Cherry, I know exactly how to pronounce his name, but Abubakar Namaka, who was another returner. He's averaging, I think, like pretty close to a double-double at least. And then Ryan Taku, who's their really athletic freshman who I've been hyping up. We both saw him at the NERR.
That's right.
Frosh sophomore back in September. So they have pieces. They're as of the last power rankings, they were number one. They're probably going to slide down. We're recording this right before the new Friday power rankings that are going to come out on January 23rd. But I expect them to be in that top 3 race in Division 1. And again, and it's basically kind of almost the same storyline with St. Mary's. Like they also moved up the division, also have a new coach, also the roster turnover. JJ Martinez, their start from last year, went off to Darrow in the prep school world. And they're it might be like better than they were last year. And they were really good last year too. They also started, I believe, 11-0. Their one loss this year is from an out-of-state loss to St. Francis in New York. And yeah, I saw them against Masco. Jake Fortier, their point guard, is one of my favorite players to watch. Just electric with the ball in his hands. And then they brought in 2 transfers, John Charius and Roki Bria Arias, who have both been fixture starters for them. Both kind of matchup problems for other teams to guard against. Like they just have so many ways to beat you, St. Mary's, as we saw in the Masco game. They were actually down in that game in the third quarter, and then they just went on this huge run to pull away. I think they won by about 15. But again, maybe I was blind to St. Mary's and just the way they would reload. But again, new coach, new roster in a lot of ways, moving up another division. Again, you just don't know how that's going to kind of shake out. I don't know if they quite expected the 10-0, 11-0 start, but they're cruising, and I think they are the clear cut front runner right now in Division 2. The last power rankings, they were more than 2 rating points
Wow.
higher than the number 2 team, and that really hasn't changed since the first power rankings a few weeks ago. And when you look at their schedule the rest of the way, I don't know how many big challenges they're going to have remaining in their schedule. I think there's a good chance like they could be undefeated or just have one loss going into the state tournament. So yeah, I mean, credit to both those programs for kind of reloading with new coaching. And Josh Kelty, the coach of St. Mary's, obviously is championship proven. He led Georgetown to the D4 title last year. So, I mean, he knows what he's doing. But again, I don't know. I think people expected both these teams to be good, but to be where they are right now with all the changes they both had, I don't know if they expected to be this good.
Mhm. Yeah, I think it's natural for us, especially on the outside, whenever there's so much turnover and change and uncertainty, it's like pretty healthy to have a good amount of skepticism for just how high the ceiling can be. But yeah, they've clearly been at their ceiling right now so far. And I know you did get to go to Tony C for the first time, right? The St. Mary's gym, which is
My God.
that is a challenging place to play. Yeah.
Can we get like a bigger gym?
Yeah.
No, I mean, no shade to St. Mary's at all. I like the intimate kind of gym settings, but for that game against Masco, it was like standing room only, and it got really hot really fast in there.
hmm
So, I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
You can attest, you've been to a lot of St. Mary's games in there.
Yes, I have. It's a fun environment, but it gets crowded quick. And yeah,
Yeah.
we'll have to get out to some MC soon. I know Joe Mazzulla's been at some MC.
Yeah.
This is pretty cool. I think that was MC Zavarian, but yeah. So
Yeah.
that again, that was the surprise that jumped out to me as someone who's followed your coverage. I think we should,
Yeah.
admittedly, when you talk about the storyline and defining storylines of this season so far, we'll talk about something that has not really surprised us, and that is Central Catholic being awesome and Javi Lopez being awesome. I know you've seen a few of their games.
Yeah.
Tell me about where this team matches up with your expectations and kind of what you think so far.
Yeah. I mean, I think they pretty much have met my expectations to this point. Obviously, they had that home opening loss to Andover, who is all, we'll get into the Andover, but they've proven to be really good too. But that, I think that surprised a lot of people at the beginning of the season. I think that was sort of just an uncharacteristic performance, kind of early season, little rustiness. I wasn't at the game, but I heard they missed like 15 to 20 layups. Like it was just like kind of an uncharacteristic, like sloppy performance for Central that you don't really expect from them. And I mean, since then, they've only lost twice, and both games were to Brewster Academy and Bergen Catholic at Hoopball, which are like, I don't know if they, they weren't expected to win those games. Let's be honest. But they're undefeated in state since then. They won the Christmas Commonwealth Motors Christmas Classic. I was there to beat Beverly convincingly in the championship game of that. Yeah, I mean, no shade to anyone else or any other teams, but I mean, I've obviously had Central Catholic as number one in my preseason rankings, and they, after that brief hiccup against Andover, they've been number one over the last 2 to 3 weeks in my top 10. I say in my opinion that they are just the best team in the state right now. And obviously you can make an argument for Malden Catholic, you can make an argument for Bridgewater Raynham right now. I think those two teams will have something to say by March. But when you just go through the talent and the depth that Central has with Javi Lopez, he is just somehow I think he has even improved from last season, and that's a hard thing for him to do. He just set the career scoring record at Central Catholic. He's at, I think, 1,606 points and counting now.
Wow.
He's just he's just unstoppable at this level. Like he's scoring like 30 every night. He's shooting 50% from three or around that right now, which like I think he was only shooting like 38, 40 last year, and
That's still really good. Yeah.
Well, that's still really good, but he's shooting 50 at an even higher volume this year. And he's just like unstoppable with the way he can score it, and the way he's leading this team too is really cool to see. A side note on Hobby, I'm really interested where he ends up college wise. We don't know kind of at this point in like January where he might end up. I know he's getting a lot of D3 interest. I was talking to his coach, Mark Dunham, the other night after they beat Lawrence. He's hoping that some NE10 schools in D2 kind of knock on the door. But I mean, he's proven it. He's definitely worthy of at least those two levels. We saw Central actually have a brutal loss at Hoopball against Bergen Catholic, which, like, on the surface, like, yeah, it was a brutal loss. Like they were up 12 at halftime. Bergen Catholic, by the way, is the number one team in New Jersey. They have 3 Division I players, including a Michigan State commit. I don't know how many people kind of expected Central, maybe even themselves, to hang around in that game, but they were up 12 at halftime. They were up 1 in the closing seconds, and they had, you be the judge. You can go back and go on YouTube and check the clip of they fouled a 3-point shooter with less than a second left while up 1, and then Bergen Catholic actually only made 1 of the 3 free throws and went to overtime, and Bergen Catholic ended up winning. But I think they came out of that game obviously disappointed that they wanted to win that game, but I think they were really encouraged by that. And for me, it kind of stamps the fact that I think they're the clear-cut top team in Division I for MIAA. And He even gave Brewster Academy a couple weeks ago a good run. I think they're only down 12 in going into the fourth quarter, which like sounds silly saying that, but like Brewster is clearly the best team in New England with multiple high major guys. So I think showing well in those 2 games was really impressive from my vantage point. And yeah, they continue to roll. Like I said, they won the Christmas tournament, and they haven't lost in state since. So I fully expect them and to stay in that 1 or 2 spot in Division One the rest of the way with their dad Jeremiah Almanzar and co-captain, and like they have different guys kind of stepping up every night. Ademola, I'm gonna butcher this kid's name, but Ademola Ajo Jr. coming off the bench for them has really impressed me with kind of his athleticism and energy. Like they just have different, like they can go like 8 or 9 deep and not kind of miss a beat. So yeah, not much else to say about Central, but they are. I don't want to make this a Central Catholic show, but I obviously am very high on them as they should be.
Yeah, no, they're impressive, and it's hard, like especially as an MIA school with some of the scheduling restrictions, it's hard to really prove yourself outside of the state in that way. And so for them to have, even in the losses, done it on some level is really impressive. And so I think that backs up a lot of what you said. And then if we get into the rest of Division One, it's like, and I have your top 10 pulled up. I have the power rankings pulled up too, so it kind of is crossover. But after that, it's kind of a war because you have Andover, which has proven it. Like the ceiling with Andover is it can hold its own with teams like Central Catholic. Then you got MC, as we talked about. You got BR, which has been really good. Attleboro, Winchester, Cambridge, Beverly, New Bedford was very close in that BR game, I know. Bishop Fee, and I'm sure we'll talk about Brody Bramilla at some point on this podcast. Needham, too, has kind of been a sleeper. So it's like, it's like Central Catholic is, I don't know, maybe a half step or maybe a full step at this point ahead of everyone. And then it's like a just dogfight after that. So how do you kind of shake out the rest of the Division One picture?
Yeah, I do think Central's the favorite right now, but I mean, as Andover showed, they can be beaten on any given night. I don't think they're unbeatable by any stretch of the imagination. I do think right now, as we're going into late January, it's kind of a three team, Central, MC, BR, I think are ahead of the pack. I think those 3 will almost, unless barring health or injuries or whatever down the stretch, I think those will be 3 of the number 1. Well, I keep saying the 3 of the number 1 seeds, like the NCAA tournament. I think those will be the top 3 seeds in MIAA.
Yep.
And then I think, as you said, you kind of ratchet down those teams, but I think that fourth seed is kind of a 5 or 6 team race between Andover, which is 11-1, Needham 10-1, Attleboro 11-1, Cambridge, which beat Attleboro, BC High's in that mix, Bishop Feen's in that mix. I do think like Catholic Memorial might have something to say, kind of coming down the stretch. They are the team that beat Malden like earlier this week. They have a potential matchup at the Comcast tournament against Central down the road in a couple weeks.
Let's go.
So we'll see if that happens. They'd have to beat Masco. So it's a fun field for the Comcast tournament. So I think CM, they just got Jakari Jenkins back. I think I've talked to you about him, the 2028 guard. He was injured to start the year. He is super electric. I think his return is going to be a massive difference maker for them. So look out for CM in that D1 picture, I think. But yeah, Needham's been a surprise. I need to get out and see them. I really like Attleboro with Connor Hole and Ladini Rodriguez. I saw them beat Olive Reeves a few weeks ago. Connor Hole, I think, is the coach of Mark Hole, is kind of taking a step, another leap in his senior year as a point guard. But yeah, it's a fun, like, maybe 10-team mix in D1, which is pretty. I think there are tiers to it, but I think it is pretty wide open, and you might see some interesting matchups come playoff time. But again, BR, Central, MC, I think the top 3, and then we all know how important that fourth seed is and getting home court advantage through the quarterfinals of the state tournament. So I think there's going to be a fun fight for that down the stretch.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be a battle. And you alluded to the Comcast tournament. I think if we have time, we might bring that up quickly at the end, but that's going to be a really great test. And both girls and boys side, it's really fun for us to check in on a lot of those top teams at that tournament because it's so good every year.
Yeah.
Then we can slide over. We'll do a little D2 overview. I know you talked about St. Mary's kind of being in a tier of its own right now, but I know you love Pope Francis, and they got a big win at Hoop Hall, or it was a big win at Hoop Hall, right? Against, was it Springfield Central, the overtime win? Overtime win?
Double overtime.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah.
Then Oliver Ames, I know, has been very solid, and you got, like, I know you like Masco. They're in your top 10. There are a couple good teams after that, but yeah, I guess, like, who are the chief challengers to St. Mary's in D2?
Yeah. I do like Pope Francis. I will admit I haven't seen them in person. But they're the only team on that's taken St. Mary. I'll preface it with this. They're the only team that's lost by single digits to St. Mary's. They lost by 9 in their season opener, which has proven to be actually, I guess, an impressive accomplishment to get within 10 points of St. Mary's.
Yeah.
But they've got this kid, Sam Brigham, who might be one of the most underrated players in the state just because, like, Western Mass doesn't get the love it probably deserves when we're zooming out of the on the entire state landscape. He's putting up like 30 a night, like the last like 6-7 games. He had 30 against Springfield Central in that double overtime game. But you go through his box scores, and obviously I know Pope Rice, they're not playing the best competition compared to teams on the eastern side of the state, but they were the number 3 seed last year, and they brought back most of that roster. And I think they made, if I'm not mistaken, the final 8 of the D2 tournament. So, I mean, they're battle tested, they're tournament proven, they've been there. So I don't think the bright lights are gonna phase them at all. So I think they're, in the last power rankings, they were number 2. They were that number 2 team behind St. Mary's. I think they'll definitely have something to say in that title race. Oliver Ames, like you said, they're 11-1 with the lone loss to Attleboro at home. I was at that game. I really love Justin Grimaldi, who I believe has a 40-point game on his resume this year. One of the best scorers in the state. Their point guard, Jacob Locke, is definitely averaging at least double-digit assists. And again, another team that made a deep run into the state tournament last year. And then Masco, I do think the 14-point loss against St. Mary's is a little deceiving. I've written a few times. They were leading early in the third quarter. Obviously, it's a tough road environment. They did have a fun student section, though. Masco brought a fun student, so it didn't feel like a true road game in some ways. But I think they showed well. Jimmy Farrell, their star point guard, scoring guard, like, was actually battling through a fever. Has left school that day, and like kind of battled through that game. And he put on like an electric performance in that game. So I think, I mean, who knows what will happen in the state tournament and what kind of the brackets look like. But I think if Masco gets another shot at them, fully healthy, Jimmy Farrell's obviously dealing with a fever. They have some sides down low, Jameson Bello, Thomas Dutton. Again, a team with deep tournament experience. They made the Final Four last year. They're not going to be phased by a big game in the state tournament. And playing against St. Mary's already should maybe ease any pressure on them. They've seen them before, and they feel like they can hang with them. So I think those 3 teams I'm looking at as potential challengers to St. Mary's. And then I do want to shout out Burlington, who was in my preseason top 10. They are now at 9-2, 8-1 in the Middlesex League. They just beat Winchester to give Winchester their first loss. I think they're around 6 or 7 in the power rankings right now. So don't sleep on them either. Another team with some experience, veteran players, Maddie Gray. They brought in this kid, Charlie Polar, who I think I talked about in the preview pod, is related to Amy Poehler, the SNL actress. And I'm not gonna miss an opportunity to bring that up. But No, Burlington, I think, will be in that picture, kind of the top 8 in D2 at least, and could make a run down the stretch for sure.
Okay.
So
Interesting.
yeah.
You got a couple strong, and this is spanning multiple divisions, but a couple strong Middlesex League schools then to talk about with Winchester too. And then we can head on down to D3 quickly. Hanover, I believe, is still undefeated as of this podcast. Then you got like Salem
They're
again.
11-0.
They're 11-0. Okay. Salem, another strong NEC school. You got teams like Tewksbury, Old Rochester, legendary 20th seed run to the championship last year. And then it gets a little bit murky after that. But I know there are stars in D3 too, like Kingston Maxwell at Abington. What are your initial thoughts on D3 so far?
Yeah, I don't think I've seen any of these teams in person. But yeah, like you said, kind of wide open. Hanover undefeated still going into Friday's games. Salem has a road win over Beverly, who we haven't really talked about this year. They've been a little up and down, but I'm still pretty high on Beverly with their depth and the talent that they have. So that's a great win for Salem. Ellie Rodriguez has been terrific for them. Their junior guard, he just hit 1,000 points earlier this week. But yeah, this is like any one of like not 8 or 9 teams I could see emerging out of D3. You said Tewksbury, Old Rochester had that legendary run to the final last year. Came seconds away from winning it as the 20th seed.
Insane.
And I think they brought back a good amount from that team. Swampscott is in the mix. I think they still have one loss. Teddy O'Neill has been really good for them. And then you can't count out Norwell. I know they went undefeated last year and they graduated most of that team, but they're still in the mix. They're still, I think, around the 10th seed as we speak right now in D3 with some good wins. So you can't count them out either. Abington, like you said, with arguably the best player in the division with Kingston Maxwell. So yeah, that's going to be a wild tournament. I think we're going to see some crazy games and maybe some upset outcomes there. So I'm excited about the D3 tournament when that comes.
Yeah, that was the roller coaster one from last season. So hopefully it lives up to that again. Then I think in the last few minutes here we've mentioned a lot of top players already. So I wanted to kind of give you the floor if there is like a small handful of players that we haven't mentioned yet that you've really been wowed by as we've gone through these first 2+ months so far.
Yeah. We mentioned Andover. Josh Rue has taken his game to a new level. I've seen them a few times. When we published the midseason report, he was averaging 26.2 points per game on like 47% shooting from 3. And we already know he's one of the best 3-point shooters in the state, and he's just continues to prove that. I think he's even evolved his game even more with when teams try to run him off the 3-point line. He's good at kind of staying composed and making strong drives or making good reads out of that, comfortable with the ball in his hands. He and Charlie Tutwiler might be the best backcourt in the state. I don't know if that's a hot take, but Charlie is taking another leap as a sophomore, defensive-minded guard, but pretty shifty as a point guard too. Can make a ton of plays offensively. There's actually a game, I forget who they played. I think it might have been Tewksbury. Josh, staying with the fever theme, like we talk about Jimmy Farrell fighting through a fever. Josh Rue also fought through a fever and was pretty slowed down in that game. And Charlie kind of took over. I think he scored 24 points with like 8 rebounds, a couple of assists.
Okay.
Again, I think that's one of the best backcourts in the state. But if we pick a player of the year candidate, it would definitely be Josh with the way you score the ball and kind of leading that team. And then we need to talk about Brody Bamilla.
Yeah, we do.
I'm going to have a story coming soon. Elite baseball prospect going to Texas. But he's just absolutely like a cheat code on the basketball court. 6'9", power forward who can shoot it apparently. He's averaging like 30. Like I have to get the official averages, the official numbers. But every time I go on Twitter or see a new box score from the game from Thean's games, it's like 32 points and 20 rebounds for Brody. He must be averaging like 32 and like 16, 17 rebounds a game.
Yeah.
Which is just insane. I do wonder if he probably would be like, if he had chose basketball, he'd probably be a D1 recruit. So I need to put him in the mix. Thean has been great. I think they're like 8-2 to start the year. They're in the top 10 of the power rankings. And Brody's been a huge reason why. You saw the clips I just showed you before the show against Attleboro. Like,
yeah, he's like
he's 5 inches tall. He's 5 inches taller than anyone else in the floor. Like, as we know in MIAA basketball, there aren't any guys that are taller than like 6'5", 6'6".
Yep.
So he's just a cheat code in the paint.
It's insane.
Yeah, he can see over everybody, and he can get wherever he wants. He can carve out space with his big body and just go to work. So he's definitely in the D1 mix. I think Javi is, again, he's pretty universally known as, regarded as the best player in the state. I think he's continued to prove that. I don't have his official numbers with me right now, but I mean, he's scored at least 30, at least 4 times. He's capable of going off every night. He had 36 in that game against Malden Catholic, against a Michigan State commit, and like arguably outplayed him. So kind of case closed there.
Mm-hmm.
Who else haven't I mentioned? D3, I think Elian Rodriguez from Salem. I've mentioned him. Teddy O'Neill from Swampscott. He has a 42-point game on his resume this year. Johnny Sullivan from Tewksbury has been really good, senior guard. They're in the top 5 of Division III. Jake Fortier, I mentioned him with St. Mary's.
Yep.
He's kind of the straw that stirs the drink for them. He was MVP of the Boverini Holiday Tournament back in December. Jacob Klaas from Beverly, continuing to play really well for them. 22, 23 points a game for them. But yeah, I think that kind of covers the top players in the state.
Yeah. No, these are all guys that you've been hyping up throughout the winter. So that sounds like a good mix. That kind of hits on most of the stuff that we wanted to talk about. Any kind of final thoughts or things you're looking forward to in the last month or so of the regular season, just generally?
I know we didn't talk about D4, D5. I did want to make a shout out to Millbury in D4, which I think is 1 or 2 in the power rankings as of this episode.
I'll pull it up.
We'll see where they are in Friday's update.
They're 2. They're 2 as of Tuesday. Wareham is 1.
Both of them are really good. I saw Millbury beat Abington back in December. A electric game. Jaden Dalalu, their guard, who was injured for most of the summer, is back, and he had a game-winning layup. Really impressive. Like, I know this is like a month ago we're talking about, but kind of towed the baseline. It was a tie game, and really impressive. Like, lefty drive to the basket, and I think he's a righty, and hit a layup at the buzzer to beat Abington. They made a deep run last year in the D4 tournament as well, and they brought back like their entire starting 5. So look out for Millbury down the stretch. Other than that, just really excited to kind of see these races. There are some big games on the stretch. I know Masco plays Beverly again. We got the Comcast tournament, which I know the girls' side, we'll get into that next week, but the girls' side is really exciting. And the boys is also pretty exciting with Central, Masco, CM, like I talked about. I'm excited to get to Emmanuel to watch those games and kind of little appetizer to the state tournament. We'll have the City of League Championships that week too. Charlestown looks great. Burke looks great. Well, Holland looks great. Holland School of Technology looks great. In Boston. I mean, like I said at the start of the show, we're going to be previewing the state tournaments like right around the corner. So
yeah, it's crazy. February break is a
lot to look forward to.
Yeah, February break's such a fun time. I already can't wait. We're only, gosh, 3 or 4 weeks away from that, so it's gonna come up fast. But yeah, that kind of wraps it up, right? I think anything else?
Yeah, I think I covered pretty much all I wanted to cover.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah.
Obviously, there's going to be some new teams probably that even emerge from this episode in the second half that make me look foolish for not mentioning them here. But
yeah, that's why we have so many of these episodes, is just so that we can keep hitting on these teams that impress us. All right, I think that about does it for us. As Steve kind of alluded to, we'll have a girls catch-up edition of MIAA next week, and we'll talk about a lot of the same stuff. But this is a good, efficient episode. I think we covered a lot of ground in a short amount of time, which is great. So yeah, thank you all for tuning in. For Steve Hewitt, I'm Ethan Fuller. We'll see you next time. Enjoy the games out there.